And hello again, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Franklin. I'm one of the two co-founders of the Northern California Spinal Cord Injury Foundation, also better known as NorCal SCI. Welcome to today's presentation on cooking with Arash and Shelley, spring dishes prepared with fresh seasonal ingredients. As always, just a few housekeeping items. Everyone has been muted in order to keep any background distractions to a minimum. We will, as always, have a Q&A session for about 10-15 minutes at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, feel free to feed them to me through the chat feature on your Zoom screen. The second thing is, as always, these presentations are made possible through a generous grant that we received from the Christopher and Dana Ree Foundation, so we're grateful to them. And finally, again, as always, we are recording tonight's presentation, and everyone who has registered for it will receive an email from us with a link to the recording first thing tomorrow morning, and that way you could watch it again if you need to jump off the call tonight or share it with any friends and family members. So let's get right to it and introduce Arash and Shelley. They are no strangers to this group. Shelley is a lifelong advocate of nutrition. When she isn't working with her patients, she can be found in her greenhouse or kitchen. She obtained her BS degree in nutritional science from my alma mater, San Jose State University, in 2012, her master's in public health in 2016 from the University of New England, and has been working at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center in San Jose, one of the top spinal cord injury rehab hospitals in the country, since 2013. She currently works in the outpatient clinic of the hospital, seeing primarily those with SCI, and also spends time working with complex GI issues in the outpatient gastroenterology clinic. And she's also a member of NorCal SCI's advisory board. As for Arash, he experienced his C5, C6 incomplete spinal cord injury in 2012 as a result of a fall. He has given numerous talks and shared his story of perseverance, recovery, and challenging limits to audiences large and small, including a TEDx talk. Arash is a Bay Area native, and he credits his California upbringing for his love of the outdoors, nature, and cooking, activities he still cherishes as he continues to travel, explore, and enjoy new experiences. He's married with a daughter and just had a newborn son a couple of months ago, and also serves on NorCal SCI's board of directors. So very pleased to have both Arash and Shelley do this sort of joint presentation tonight, and you're in for a nice treat. Arash, Shelley, take it away. All right, hold on, let me unmute you. There you go.
Okay. Shelley, are you with me?
I'm here.
Okay. Let's dive right into it. Shelley, should I just start with kind of what we're going to do and our thoughts on seasonality and CSA?
Yep, and I'll jump in whenever you're done with that.
Great. Yeah, and if you joined us last time, I'll be doing some cooking. Shelley's gonna do some explanation and provide lots of wonderful info. So away we go. The theme for today is spring dishes. It is, of course, spring. And one thing we want to emphasize is the not just importance health-wise, but the joy of eating seasonally. And one of the reasons we both were very excited about choosing this topic is because springtime is a wonderful time for cooking and eating. We live in California. We're not exactly suffering through the cold, but after months of certain things not being available as fresh, it's wonderful to go to the store or the farmer's market and see what's coming out there. So we have a great number of dishes planned, and we're gonna make a frittata, and we are going to from there go to a what did I say? We're gonna go do a frittata. Oh, we're gonna do a roasted cauliflower salad. We're gonna make a strawberry rhubarb mint compote. This is something you can put on pretty much anything you want, and then just some simple sauteed asparagus. So I want to just mention a quick word about a CSA, because I feel like it's a good opportunity to introduce it. We haven't talked about it, and then maybe give Shelley a chance to talk about that as well. And and away we go. So one way we figured out how to pick these dishes is because of the seasonality of the ingredients, and a CSA is something I've been taking part in for many years. It stands for Community Supported Agriculture, long name for a simple concept. You guys might know it as like a veggie box. So it's the idea that you get your produce directly from a farm, ideally very locally. Mine is very local. It's just east of Calistoga, called Full Belly Farm, and they send you a box of produce every week, and you don't know what you're going to get. And you have to make it, and it's obviously stuff that's in season. So it's made me a much better cook to be able to be forced to use things that I didn't normally know how to do, and then, you know, from there, just learning about new products, new vegetables, fruits, whatever, and the quality and I mean, Shelley can talk about the nutrition, but in terms of the taste and the quality, it's just fantastic. So Shelley, I'll pass it over to you and grab a couple of things before we get started on the frittata.
Some of those CSA boxes actually have recipes and information about the things that they send in their box too, which is really interesting. And I have people that I know that have done imperfect produce, which is kind of local also, but the rejects. So you get all the imperfect produce, the weird shaped potatoes. They're all local, but they look funny and they wouldn't sell in the grocery store. So that's another good option too. So I used to teach a class at San Jose State called Hunger and Environmental Nutrition. And so sustainability and environment and local foods it's all very important to me. Like Arash said, local food is totally full of flavor. When it's grown locally, the crops are picked right at their peak of ripeness. And they're harvested within sometimes 24 hours versus conventional crops, which are picked a long time in advance in order to be shipped and sent to you from other parts of the country or other parts of the world. Another good thing about eating seasonally is the fact that you're mixing up your diet. And I always talk about wanting to eat different things for nutritional reasons and not sticking to the same thing over and over and over. So if you're eating seasonally, you're definitely mixing it up color-wise and nutrient-wise. More nutrients. So the more food travels, the less nutrients it has when it gets to you. So the nutrition is reduced quite substantially, especially if it's traveling from other countries. So that's another thing. Let me know if you want to jump in for any reason, Arash. Okay.
No, how about I'll start a couple of the things for the frittata, and then once I'm getting things cooking, I'll need a few minutes, and I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, I still have more to say, so go for
it. Good. No, I want you to say much more. We're going to turn the camera around. So here we go.
So like I was saying, even though we wish we had strawberries all year that were tasty and fresh, it's a good time to eat local stuff that's within season. And that way, when the strawberries come to you, it's insane on your taste buds. And my favorite is peaches. So that season is coming and I'm super excited for it. We grow a lot of tomatoes in our garden in the summertime, and they're so different compared to the kind you buy at the grocery store that are pink and just kind of mealy. I typically don't even eat tomatoes during the year unless there's something that I prepared and canned or something like that from a garden. So it tastes better to me. So I tend to skip tomatoes over the winter time because they're just so gross to me. I've been spoiled, we live in California and we're really, really lucky. So also I want to tell you that local foods support your local economy. Money that's spent with local farmers and growers, it stays close to home and it's reinvested into businesses and services in the community. So it's really good for your community and locals. Benefits the environment. So if you're, interested in that kind of thing, you're going to help maintain farmland and green or open space in your neighborhood and community. You're not going to be contributing to all of the fossil fuels that are involved with shipping produce all over the country, all over the world. Save a lot of fuel that way. And then also another thing is go to the farmers market, talk to the farmers. You can find out how they grew their produce. You can ask what practices they use to raise it. Organic certification is very expensive. I've talked about this before. It's very time consuming, expensive. The certification process is daunting. A lot of farmers don't have the bandwidth or, the knowledge to maintain a certification, organic certification, but they might practice organic, growing practices. So talk to your farmers. That's the best way to do it, is at the farmers market. So you can talk to them.
Shelley, can I jump in real quick?
Go for it. Yeah.
So follow me over here. We're going to introduce the first thing. So we are going to make a frittata. It is not fully plant-based, and Shelley can talk more about that in a moment. But I want to introduce some of our wonderful spring ideas. Asparagus, obviously in season right now. It's a very short season. I know asparagus is available to people all year round. I know you can get it at Costco or wherever all year round. It's not, my opinion, it just doesn't taste as good. When it's in season and it's local asparagus, it's so much better. So we're gonna make an asparagus, kale, spring carrots, which are so sweet, so much sweeter than your typical carrots you get like out of the bag, and some spring onions. So they look like this. I kind of kept a couple as decor. You see the onion bulbs are kind of small, and the greens are really tasty too. So I just chopped up a little bit of the spring onions. I'm going to cut up the carrots. I do want to just quickly mention how I cut the asparagus and then pass it over to Shelley while I start to get everything going in a saute pan. So when you get a bunch of asparagus like this, many of you, if you've cooked with asparagus, you probably know it, but you want to trim off about the bottom quarter. I would say about 2 to 3 inches of the asparagus. It's really tough and fibrous. So I usually keep like the rubber band on. It just makes it really easy. And I just measure right about there. Boom, cut that off. I take the rubber band off and just throw it in the compost. And then for this particular dish, I'm not going to use all this for the frittata. I'm going to use some for later. But what I'm going to do is I want the pieces to be about 1.5 inches or so. So really straightforward. I like to keep the tops because they're kind of cool looking. I like to keep those kind of uniform. So I'll cut the tops off like that. Cut my tops. And then I do about 1.5 inches cut, 1.5 inches cut, 1.5 inches cut. Boom. Asparagus is done. So I am going to start these spring onions and the kale, because those take a little bit of time to cook. Start those in a little bit of olive oil on the pan. And in a couple minutes, I'll add in the asparagus. And in the meantime, I'm going to pass it back to Shelley, if that's okay.
Okay. I feel like we're in a news show. Thanks, Arash. So the frittata, plant-based, yes. So Arash and I do promote a plant-based lifestyle because of the incredible nutritional benefits and health benefits associated with it. But like I always say, plant-based doesn't mean just 100% plants and that is all. So I say 90% is a good percentage to go, like mostly plants, things that grow in the ground. The other 10%, eggs and fish, whatever other things that you want. But I've talked a ton about how nutritious asparagus, kale, and carrots are. They're 3 of the most abundantly nutritious foods there are, and Arash is putting that into one dish. So this is a super power dish. Let's talk about cholesterol real quick, because eggs, they still have a bad rap. People are still kind of curious about eggs and should I have eggs? How many eggs should I have? Cholesterol, it's a waxy substance that occurs naturally in your body. It's necessary for many of your body functions like cell structure and hormones. Dietary cholesterol, though, and cholesterol in your body are 2 different things. So eggs have a bad rap. Eating Arash's frittata won't give you high cholesterol, but a diet that's high in saturated and trans fat and added sugars and eating a lot of eggs might raise your cholesterol, especially if that's a genetic thing for you, if it's in your family. I think the overall diet is way more important than worrying about eating a couple eggs in a frittata with all the other nutritional goodies that he's chopping right now from time to time. They fit very well into a healthy diet. And I mean, I actually have chickens, and so my chickens lay eggs, and once in a while I'll have eggs too because they're so good. They have a lot of good protein in them as well. So that's my spiel on eggs. they're great when added to an overall healthy diet, and a diet that has a lot of fiber and plant-based foods in it. They fit very well. Do you want to add anything, Arash, or should I go on to asparagus a little bit?
No, I'll just add, I don't eat eggs very often, but I do, this is a good dish to make if you're ever like entertaining, or if you want to make like a breakfast or a brunch ahead of time. A frittata is nice because it can stick, you can make it and have it done and then serve it like room temperature. So it is a rare occasion that I do eat them. I'm not crazy about eggs. I like them okay, but this is a great example. And I load my frittata, as you're going to see, with veggies. So it's very different than something you might see when you eat out. That's like cream and eggs and cheese and
cheese.
Stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, pass it back to you.
Yeah. So we'll talk about asparagus. I do want to address this little elephant in the room. A lot of people talk to me about how they've noticed asparagus makes your urine smell. And I'm talking about this while he's cooking. Sorry, but some people want to know why. So when you eat asparagus, it's broken down into sulfur containing byproducts. And so what you're smelling is sulfur. Some people break down the compounds a lot more efficiently, thus their lack of odor. But another thing to know is that some people just don't have the ability to detect that odor at all. And so, so even if there is a sulfurous odor, some people can't even smell it. So there's two factors. Some people break down the sulfur components easily and good, and other people just plain can't smell them. So it's a pretty interesting, yeah, so that's asparagus and tons of fiber with it. So what are we doing now?
So so I've got a pan. This is an important thing for the frittata. I got an oven-proof pan. So my frying pan does not have a handle that's made of plastic or wood. And the reason is I want to be able to cook this on the stove and then stick it in the oven. You can make a frittata just on the stove and you can put a lid on it. There's definitely ways. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I just prefer this method. So that's one important thing to be aware of, is if you're using a pan, be careful, make sure it doesn't have like a plastic handle. This is metal. Obviously the pan is metal, can handle heat. So that's an important step. And all I did was just start with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm just sauteing up these veggies. I want them to cook most of the way. Sorry, they're making a lot of noise. They're very happy in here. I want them to cook, about 2/3 of the way through. They're going to continue to cook with the eggs in the oven, so they don't have to be like done. But that's all I'm doing. I'm just sauteing these. And just a quick word about, I talked about this before, is like I like to eat with my eyes. One reason I chose carrots is that it's a contrast. It's pretty. It's an orange color popping out from all the green. So actually, sorry, let me turn on my light here. There we go. So anyway, in the summertime, that's a good opportunity to use tomatoes and whatever's in season. But right now, carrots are in season, so that's part of why I like the carrots. It kind of gives you a little bit of contrast in color. So that's all I'm doing now. I'm going to mix up my eggs, and then I'm going to just add those in a moment. So.
Yeah, you can do, I like the idea of mixing color in, because the more colorful, the more nutritious the dish is. So like he said, you could do tomatoes in the summertime, and you could do bell peppers of all colors there, all different greens. You could add potatoes, diced potatoes in there. Frittatas are pretty fun. They're, you can do anything, like just like the stir fries that we talk about, and you can basically put anything into a frittata. Zucchini.
Yeah, really anything. Another nice combo is like leeks with asparagus. Leeks are still in season, so we're kind of in this fun time where it's like the end of winter and into spring and summer. So there's a lot of stuff, as you'll see from our next dish, that's kind of a little more like cold weather stuff still. So don't be shy, don't worry. As always, as I always say with my recipes, it's not about the specific ingredients. It's just about the general idea. Take it wherever you want. If you don't like any of these ingredients, put something else in there that you want. But the only important thing is get them cooking a little bit, get some of their moisture out of the vegetables. I'm going to season them with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then it's getting close to that point. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, is I preheated my oven to 350 degrees. So that's important because I'm gonna put the eggs in here and then stick this in the oven. And hopefully before we're done with our session tonight, the frittata will be ready and you guys can see what it looks like. So this is getting close. I'm gonna add just a little splash of olive oil more because the pan needs a little bit. And I've got 8 eggs here. You know, this is a pretty solid amount. And one other thing I will mention about the frittata is pay attention. You'll see later when we're done, but pay attention to the kind of pan you use. If you're using a really flat pan, you're gonna have a really thin, flat frittata. Again, nothing wrong with it. It's just a preference. I like this size because it's gonna give me a frittata about, you know, a little round and then a little bit tall. I kind of like that. Some people like a frittata that's really thick and kind of like you could use like a cast iron pan or something. Cast iron is actually the best thing for this because you can stick it straight in the oven. So just another small little tip there. But I'm gonna add a little olive oil, throw the eggs in here, and Shelley, if you have more to add right now, that'd be great.
Yeah, I do. So for those of you who like to do a little meal prep, get some healthy stuff together one time a week, twice a week or something, you can use a muffin pan for this and do kind of the same thing that he's doing and have little frittata muffins that are super easy to just grab and go if you need to. So I've done that before, and it's a snap to have little frittata muffins whenever you need them. Mushrooms are awesome too in frittatas.
All right, so I just put the eggs in, and now an important step is I want to get them, you know, equally distributed. So I got all my veggies in here. Some people like take all the veggies out, put the eggs in, then put the veggies back in. I don't think that's necessary. What I do think is necessary is to kind of, see, I'm kind of using my spatula to push the outside edges in. And all I'm wanting to do is to get the eggs to set. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, you know, like a perfect omelet or anything, but I want the eggs to reach the edges of the pan. And if you can see right now, you've got some runny eggs in the middle and the beginning is the outsides are start to set. So what I'm going to do is this is a trick. You push the outside, you kind of tilt your pan and you get that, you see all that kind of liquidy egg and you do that. And then you can kind of do that round and around. If you still have some liquidy eggs, I don't have a ton, but all I'm doing is I'm just setting this up. And this is going to go into the oven and it's going to cook. So I like having these veggies kind of really visible on top and looking good. And so I'm just breaking up the liquidy part of the egg. See, I'm taking my spatula, I'm pushing down towards the middle, tilting the pan. There's not a lot here. But if you were a classically trained chef, that's how you would actually make the perfect omelet. But that's a different thing. And I'm not a classically trained chef. But all we're trying to do, and we're pretty much there, we're just trying to get the frittata to set. And all that means is that it's taken some shape. So you see, like when I tilt the pan and move it around, the whole thing is kind of staying together, right? And this part of the middle is still uncooked. That's totally fine. It's going to go in the oven. And before I put it in the oven, this is a good opportunity to customize this however you want. If you want to add a certain spice or something that you like, if you want to add some herbs, if you do some, you know, if you do want to eat like a little bit of goat cheese, you could put a couple crumbles of goat cheese right on top and stick that in the oven, and then it melts and it looks really pretty because the blots of goat cheese, you know, look really nice. So I'm keeping it simple. It was just salt and pepper and the veggies and the eggs, and you see how nice that's looking. It's real good. My oven is hot. I'm going to stick this in the oven and we'll come back and start working on the next dish in a moment.
So we got a question about the health benefits of mushrooms, and because I mentioned that earlier, in asparagus. As far as mushrooms, so they're super low in calories. They're high in fiber, protein, and they've got protein and antioxidants. But the thing I like about mushrooms is if you're trying to eat more plant-based, mushrooms can be filling, more satisfying, kind of take the place of meat in certain dishes. Also full of antioxidants. They've been studying mushrooms within Alzheimer's studies and heart disease, cancer, and diabetes because of their antioxidant and nutritional benefits. So mushrooms are fantastic. Again, with asparagus, super high in fiber, low in calories, good source of fiber, folate for forming red blood cells, vitamins A, C, and K, very nutritious. And there's been some studies that having more asparagus in your diet is good for lower blood pressure and that kind of thing. They're looking at it more and more. So I think cardiovascular wise, I would say asparagus is a good bet, and definitely mushrooms too. Hopefully that answered that question.
All right, should we move on to the next dish?
Sure.
All right. Our next dish is a roasted cauliflower salad. A few sessions ago, I did a whole thing on how to roast cauliflower. It's pretty straightforward, but I did that ahead of time. All I did was take one big head of cauliflower, cut it up into the smaller chunks, stuck it on a baking sheet, little spray of olive oil, and roast it in the oven for about 40 minutes or so at 400 degrees. And I've got this nice char. You see that like black and brown? That's great. That means the sugars in the cauliflower have caramelized, and that's what gives your cauliflower a really nice texture. So this is going to be like the base of my salad. I love how cauliflower has become such a trendy ingredient these days. It's kind of everywhere now. But yeah, so it's going to be a roasted cauliflower. I've got some baby spinach in here. This is, again, just simple store-bought baby spinach. I'm using that as like the bed of my salad. So all I did was just have it in the bowl. And then a few other items to throw in. I've got some red onion. I've got some pistachios. These are roasted but not salted. I've talked about this before. I don't like pre-salted things. If I can, I like to salt things myself. So these are just roasted pistachios. And then a little bit of parsley from my garden that I'm going to put in here. So I'm going to basically dump these in here, and then in a moment I'll talk about the dressing. But Shelley, do you want to jump in real quick about these first items I'm talking about?
Yeah. Cauliflower is a powerhouse food. Again, very low in calories, super high in vitamins. In fact, cauliflower, if you eat a healthy serving of that, you're touching on almost every vitamin and mineral that you need. Not in all like the full quantity, but you're touching on all of those things. So fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, B6, again, folate, pantothenic acid, potassium, manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, all of those. So cauliflower is definitely up there in terms of one of those super nutritious foods that you can eat. And then talking about a little bit about pistachios, again, vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 helps promote blood flow by carrying oxygen through the bloodstream to cells. So pistachios are good for that. They have a lot of antioxidants and vitamin E and polyphenols. They are a monounsaturated fat. There's a mix of mono and polyunsaturated fats, more specifically monounsaturated fats, and those have been shown to reduce levels of LDL cholesterol. So excellent for cardiovascular disease prevention. He's popping pistachios right now.
Got a stray one. I got to eat it.
That's what I got to say about the nutrients in that, along with the fact that I'm going to be making this particular salad probably this weekend.
Yeah, this is a very open to interpretation salad. It's you can, again, use whatever you want. Usually it goes really well with celery, and I just forgot to get the celery, but the celery gives it a nice texture, but I didn't have that, so I'm using baby spinach that I had instead. So but again, you can use kind of whatever you want. I like having like a cooked element, like the cooked roasted cauliflower combined with like the fresh greens and other things. That's like, a very, very good, fun way to make an interesting salad that's not just like kind of boring, or lettuce or something. This recipe is actually a little bit of a nod to my Iranian heritage. So the dressing is going to be really, really straightforward. I just need my salt and pepper. But all I'm using is, this is the juice of one lemon. I don't know about you guys, but in my neighborhood, everyone seems to have a lemon tree that's exploding with lemons. So if you can get your hands on fresh lemons, get it. It's so much better than the you know, like the kind in the bottle. But if you have to use the bottle, that's okay too. So I'm actually using a measuring cup. This is about a third of a cup. With any dressing, I think I've talked about this before. You want some acid, you want some other kind of, you know, seasoning, some kind of usually oil or fat, not a lot, but a little bit to give it that body. So all I have is my lemon juice here, and then I've got 2 ingredients that make this recipe really, really fun. And like when I was a kid, these ingredients were a lot harder to find, but now they're kind of everywhere. A lot of stores have them. So this is pomegranate molasses. This is usually made somewhere in the Middle East. In Iranian cooking, we use it all the time. It's a little bit sweet. It's a little bit sour, very sour actually. It's basically concentrated pomegranate. And it's so good to use as a dressing. You just don't want to use too much of it because it's molasses, it's thick, it's concentrated. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of the pomegranate molasses. And the other ingredient that's kind of fun is sumac. Sumac is another spice that's used very frequently in Middle Eastern cooking, a lot in Iranian cooking. So my jar is almost empty. It doesn't have a very strong flavor, so I don't mind using quite a bit. So I'm using my palm as a measuring tool, as I often do, and doing about a palmful. It's probably about half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of sumac, and then just a pinch of salt, and then a little bit of black pepper, and then a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just making it right here in this measuring cup. And I'm just gonna mix this up, and that's gonna be my dressing. And it's so good, guys. If you make this recipe, you'll see it's just like so bright and wonderful. The fresh lemons complement the pomegranate so well with the roasted cauliflower. Again, that roasted flavor with the raw vegetables. It's just such a winner. So Shelley, any quick words about that while I'm mixing the dressing up?
What did the broccoli say to the cauliflower when making their getaway?
No, I was going to say something brassica. I don't know.
Floor it.
Floor it. And Shelley made a wonderful joke. So
I'm going to start doing that more often. I don't have much more to say on this particular dish, except for it looks delicious. And I love the idea of adding some kind of crunchy nut or something to a nice roasted salad like this. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I just kind of tasted it, and I feel like I might have made a little too much dressing. That's why it's really always important to taste your food. So as always, I use my lap. It's my best friend. I do everything on my lap, and I'm kind of folding. I have the baby spinach on the bottom, so I want to make sure all the dressing gets to that, and I don't have like raw spinach. So I'm kind of folding the bottom up onto the top, and I'm also making sure I don't lose the pistachios that have like a tendency to sink to the bottom. And when this is done, I mean, it's so good. I think it could use just a small splash of dressing. But again, this is something you can customize it however you like. And this is such a winner of a recipe. Now I'm really bummed I forgot the celery, because celery is such a, kind of a humble vegetable, but I think it makes the salad so, so good.
So there was a question about protein in this salad, Arash. There's some protein in those pistachios, and there's definitely protein in the veggies that are with it. It's not a high protein dish, but again, a lot of people are so overly concerned about getting a ton of protein. You can add a grain or something to this, right? Like, couldn't you add like quinoa or something to make it a little more high protein if you wanted?
Absolutely. And Shelley and I both have talked about how you can watch our session on protein. I don't think everything you eat needs to have massive amounts of protein. Please, everybody, like, open your mind to not thinking that you have to eat just massive amounts of protein. But yes, if you wanted to add some to this, you could add some cooked quinoa, some whole grains. Watch our whole grain session. We talked about a million different options, and that's a good one to just throw in here if you have it cooked in your fridge, which we've also talked about in past sessions about meal prep. So this is pretty much done.
and protein is filling, but I also do want to remind you that this dish has a ton of fiber in it. Fiber is equally filling. So, and again, I talk a lot about volume, and veggies like this contain a lot of water and fiber, and those two things they make them completely satisfying dishes. So if you throw a ton of vegetables in a bowl like this with some pistachios, you're definitely looking at a wholesome dish, something that'll get you nice and satisfied.
Okay. So my salad's done. I'm gonna peek at my frittata. I don't want it to burn, so I'm just sharing that with you guys. Oh yeah, it's bubbling away in there. It's looking so good. So remember, that was 350. Takes about 20-25 minutes depending on the thickness. Again, if you're using a really thick pan, then you want all that stuff in the middle to cook through. So you want to make sure you give it enough time. You don't do too high of a heat, because then you'll have outsides cooked, insides raw. That doesn't taste good. So 350.
How do you check? Do you use a toothpick, Arash? That's kind of what I do.
Yeah, you can do a fork, a knife, a toothpick, anything that you can stick in there and pull it out. And if it looks wet, or if you can kind of feel it, if it feels kind of jiggly or wet when you're sticking it in and pulling it out, then it's not cooked. You want it to go in and out easily. It should kind of feel dry in there. But you also don't want to overcook it. There's nothing wrong with it, but a nice frittata is the one that's cooked just right, not overcooked, not undercooked. So,
would you say that was a teaspoon of sumac, Arash? You said like a little bit in your phone?
I think it was about a teaspoon of sumac. And
Okay.
and don't be scared, guys. Get into it. These are
Get
fun
into
things. Get into it. I'm sometimes surprised about how scared people are to use spices. Like, get in there, use it, give your food flavor. The more flavor you can give from something healthy like a sumac or a spice, the less it has to come from something that's not as good for you. So yeah, I'm gonna jump to, if that's okay, Shelley, I'm gonna jump to the compote, and then maybe finish off with our asparagus when we have time. So do you have anything else to add about our roasted cauliflower salad?
I don't think so.
All right. So our next item is a strawberry, rhubarb, and mint compote. Shelley was mentioning this earlier. I'm the same. I don't eat strawberries until it's springtime. I don't eat tomatoes, just like Shelley. I don't eat them unless it's summer. There's just something about fresh strawberries that taste so much better than the kind you can get year round. So strawberries are in season right now. If you go to a farmer's market, get strawberries, buy a lot, eat them fresh. My 2-year-old daughter eats like a basket and a half on her own by herself. She loves them so much. So this is, I'm calling it a compote. I kind of made this recipe up because I'm not a big sweets person, but this is a great thing you could put onto waffles, pancakes. You could have it and put it on top of your breakfast oatmeal. Any kind of like cereal, like a bland cereal, if you're eating, you want to throw a spoonful of this in there. It's so good. So for those of you who haven't seen, this is rhubarb. It looks really funny. It kind of looks like a giant red celery. Very short season also. It's harder to find outside of its season, but it is in season right now. So rhubarb is wonderful. It has a really sour flavor. You can't really eat it raw. Sometimes people pickle it. I've done that. It actually tastes really good, but you want to cook it. And the reason why, if you've eaten like strawberry rhubarb pie or something, it's always paired with something sweet, is because rhubarb is very tart, but it has such a nice texture, and it basically melts into like, it's like plant butter. It just turns into like melty, gooey deliciousness. So that's why it's always combined with like peaches or strawberries. So I've got this thing of rhubarb. I've got a few strawberries here. I picked some mint from my garden. All of that is going to go into a little pot. In fact, I should turn on my pot real quick. But I do want to talk about how I cut my strawberries. So Shelley, can I pass it to you for a moment while I get my pot going?
Yeah. First of all, I will say, if you do grow rhubarb, or if you buy it with the leaves, don't do what you would do with chard and like eat the leaves and the stem, and like don't like eat the whole thing. You just want to eat the stalk. So a little background, rhubarb's a vegetable. It's more used like a fruit. Like Arash said, it was classified as a fruit actually in 1947. It's easy to grow. It's almost impossible to get rid of in your garden if you want to. It takes over, but the leaves are really poisonous. If you eat a lot of the leaves, it can actually be lethal. So you don't want to try to be healthy and eat the leaves off a rhubarb plant if you can help it. But the stalks are highly nutritious and they have a ton of calcium, manganese, vitamin C, vitamin K, fiber, tons of antioxidants. The stalks are where it's at for sure for that. And of course, strawberries have a ton of vitamin C.
Okay, so all I did, guys, is I took most of that stalk of rhubarb, not all of it, because again, I don't want it to be too tart. And I just cut it in half lengthwise, and then I just diced it up into little chunks. For strawberries, I cut most of these up ahead of time, but I just wanted to talk real quick this is just a little side tip for strawberries, a little kind of, if you will, like a chef's tip. If you're ever cutting up strawberries for like pancakes or something, you know, that you want to present them, the best way, and this is totally not a must, this is just like a fun bonus. Sometimes people will cut strawberries, they'll cut off the top, and then they'll cut slices like that, right? Okay, nothing wrong with that. But my little tip is this: the sweetest part of the strawberry is towards the tip. The least sweet part is up towards the top, as you know, because it's usually like the most white part. So with this, you're getting some pieces that are really sweet, some pieces that aren't as sweet. So the way I like to cut strawberries, and if you go to like a good restaurant, the way you know that they know what they're doing is I cut the top off, I stand it up, and you cut lengthwise like that. So that way, the piece you're getting has the sweetest part and the least sweet part, and you're getting like a really uniform piece. This is kind of geeky, I know, but I just had to take this opportunity to share that about strawberries because it's something that many of us eat very often. It's something that we see on menus and again, like breakfast things. And if you have a really big strawberry, you can cut it in half this way and then cut it into pieces. So, oops, I got one here. So same thing, I just cut it in half. This is a small one, so I wouldn't have to do that, and then just one more slice. And you see I got these nice pieces. So ignore these pieces, focus on these ones. Just a little tip. And guys, this recipe is really easy. I'm literally gonna dump the strawberries and the rhubarb into my little pot and put it on the stove at low heat. So I'm just gonna do that now. And I'm just gonna slowly bring it to cook, and all these things will mush in together. I'm not adding the mint yet. The mint is something that goes in towards the end, but here are my strawberries. Here's my rhubarb. I try not to ever add additional sugar because I feel like if you're using something that's in season, it should be plenty sweet, but this might be one where I might add like a teaspoon of sugar, just a little bit to get it going, but not much. So I'm gonna stick this onto the stove. Follow me here. I've got my stove on about medium heat, and let's see, I'm just gonna add like literally like a pinch of sugar just to get it going. And then the other thing that this needs is a little bit of water. So, which I forgot to have ahead of time, I'm gonna put, and that's because the fruit and the rhubarb on its own, there's not enough moisture in there. Once everything starts to melt together, it'll be fine. But I'm gonna add about a cup of water. I'm gonna bring the heat up. I'm gonna stick this lid on, and this is gonna be ready in no time. My compote's gonna be ready. And again, once that cools, you can use that for anything. So I think this will be ready in time. I'm gonna take one more peek at my frittata, and oh man, is that getting close. So another important tip with that pan I was talking about, everybody who's cooked a lot has probably done this at some point, but that handle that's metal, it's really hot now. So make sure you don't just grab the handle. I've done this a few times and it does not feel good. So I'm gonna open my oven. I've got my oven mitt on. I've got come take a look at this. So that is pretty darn close. I don't need to stick the fork in, but you see how pretty that is. It just needs a couple more minutes. If you do put like a little bit of goat cheese or something, you can also turn up the heat for these last couple minutes and brown it a little bit. But that's going to be ready in just a few minutes. So our last item that I'm going to do is just going to be a very, very simple sauteed asparagus, just because I have so much of it. So all I'm going to do for that, I've got my frying pan here. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to throw a little bit of olive oil in. My asparagus, you saw I already trimmed. I don't need to do anything else. I'm literally just going to put some olive oil in here, stick my asparagus in the pan, saute it for a couple of minutes, add some garlic. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'm going to pass it back to Shelley to talk about, since we already talked about asparagus. But if there are questions or any other things that Shelley you want to bring up. So.
All right, so gonna address one question here. So how do I count the calories on all these? Any suggestions? The beauty of a plant-based diet is they're so nutrient dense and low in calories and high in fiber and water. You really don't have to count the calories. If you're eating mostly plant-based, if you watched any of my presentations, I talk a lot about the volume, weight per calorie, and vegetables and fruits and whole grains fall at the low end of the scale, where it's almost impossible to eat too many vegetables to gain weight. I mean, I think it might be impossible because you'll be so incredibly uncomfortable by the time you finish eating all those vegetables that I don't think you're going to try that again. But as far as calories and how to count these, I mean, the best way to count calories, and I'm not a fan of that unless absolutely needed for a medical reason, is you're going to have to weigh and measure all these ingredients and then plug them into a database or something like that. But like I said, I'm a really big advocate for plant-based eating, and the farther you get to just eating primarily plants, the less you have to count calories. Your body will work its way to a healthy weight for you, or stay at a healthy weight if you do that. There's another question here. Where can I find the pomegranate molasses? What's your preferred brand, or what should I look for, Arash?
Great question. The easiest place for sure is any kind of Middle Eastern market. In the Bay Area, we have lots of those. So Middle Eastern market, Pakistani market, they always have it. I've actually seen it at even some bigger grocery stores. I can't remember if it was Safeway or another of its equivalent probably has it. The brand I like is called Sadaf, and you can tell because it's got it looks like Arabic, but it's Farsi, that handwriting on it, so that's a good sign. But really, whatever you can get your hands on, get that. They can differ. Some are sweeter, some are more tart. This is like, if you really start to use it really frequently, then you can kind of get into the nitty gritty. But for now, whatever you can get your hands on, once you open it, it lives in your fridge. It kind of lasts forever. But yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that.
We have any more questions, Franklin, while he's cooking?
No, not now.
These are beautiful. They're beautiful dishes, Arash. They're such a good reflection of kind of what to get in the spring that's in season. Nice mix of color and nutrients and variety.
Yeah, and this is again, if you eat asparagus seasonally, it's only around for like a month or two, so enjoy it, eat it while it's in season. Really, oh, there goes my rhubarb. So yeah, it might seem like we're doing a lot with asparagus, but that's because I'm not going to eat it the rest of the year. So
yeah, my
rhubarb is bubbling away here. I'm going to turn the heat down. I took the lid off because it's kind of getting a little crazy over here, but that's okay. That's just all I want to do is I want those flavors to meld and come together. I'm going to do a couple of final touches. I'm going to stir my asparagus, chop up a couple cloves of garlic to add to my asparagus. I didn't add those at the beginning because they would burn. So I'm adding the garlic towards the end. I'm going to keep an eye on my compote, and I'm going to pull my frittata out and show that to you guys in just a moment. So.
Got a question. Is asparagus as much of a green as leafy greens? They're different. They have different nutrients. Asparagus has I want to say a little bit more fiber than leafy greens. I want to say they're kind of in the same category. I think asparagus is probably a little bit more filling, but I don't know. It depends on how many leafy greens you eat. So I think it's important to get a good mix. So if you're going to do all of those things, to have some asparagus, have leafy greens, have different leafy greens, berry your leafy greens, and just get a good mix of everything. Hopefully that
All
answered
right,
that.
guys. So all I did is just sprinkle a little garlic on top. I haven't seasoned this yet, and that frittata I think is ready to go. So let's rescue it out the oven. And guys, look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. So that's the frittata. It's hot, so I'm gonna put it down. If you were to like present this, you could let that cool. You could stick a plate on top of it, flip it over, and then it's like this really beautiful presentation. But I'm just gonna let this cool. And frittatas are great. You can eat them for dinner. You can eat them for lunch. You can make a sandwich out of them, whatever you really want. And I forgot to mention earlier, I picked a little bit of dill from my garden just because I wanted a little freshness. So all I'm gonna do is finish that frittata with a couple little sprinkles of dill on top. Just an optional thing, just fun because I had it. And let me grab a spoon and show you guys this compote because it is smelling really, really good now.
Okay, so got a question. Are the vendors at farmers market required to only sell locally grown produce at such markets? I think it'd be hard if you weren't local. And I do think there's certain requirements. Like I know the Pacific Coast Farmers Market Association has requirements for where their vendors are coming from. So I want to say like local doesn't necessarily mean like if I go to a farmer's market here in San Jose, but like they got to be able to drive their produce from somewhere. So most of our stuff comes from Hollister and Gilroy, Modesto probably, and Fresno, but probably no further than that. I don't know where yours, because you're more north than me, Arash.
Yeah, but the farmers market, yeah, I don't think you can have a farmers market and have people bring stuff from really far away. Sometimes they come like dates and certain things that grow in like Southern California near like Palm Springs. I know some farms are kind of further south, but local enough, guys. I mean, it's a lot better than
California is local as far as I'm
from
concerned.
Chile. Yeah, exactly. So don't worry too much. The other thing is if you're into the organic thing, don't worry too much. You can always ask the farmers. This is a great opportunity to ask them, hey, are you organic? Are you not? And also remember that organic isn't the end all be all. Some farmers just don't have the money. It costs a lot of money to get organic certified. So they just don't have the money to get organic certified. But if you ask them, they might say, no, we're not certified organic. We don't use any pesticides or chemicals. So to me, that's the same thing. And that's because they're a small farm. They might not be able to afford to do it like a big industrial farm. So, so guys, I'm going to add my mint. Again, it's just a few, about 10 or 12 leaves of mint I picked from the garden. I'm going to throw that in there just whole. And I want you to see how beautiful this is. It's still a little watery, so I'm just going to let this cook. So I might have added a little too much water at the beginning, but the beauty of this compote is that it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to let this cook with the lid off because I'm letting the liquid evaporate. If I kept the lid on, it would keep more moisture in. But because I want this to concentrate a little more, and oh man, if you guys could smell this, the combo of strawberry, rhubarb, and then fresh mint, I'm telling you, put that onto like your morning oatmeal, yogurt, if you're in like the yogurt granola and you don't want to add like something sweet, like honey or sugar, put some of this on there. Put it on your pancakes, put it on your waffles, whatever it is. And my asparagus is looking nice. I like it to get kind of black like that. And you see my garlic isn't burned. It's just nicely browned. I like to add at the very end of this, like a little sprinkle of like balsamic vinegar or a little bit of fresh lemon, just to give it some acid to wake it up, to brighten the flavors a little bit. But I know we're coming in near the end of the time, so I wanted to make sure I recapped. Asparagus is pretty much done. I'm not going to touch that. Remember, that's hot. My frittata, as you guys saw earlier, it's beautiful. It's ready. It's done. It can, eat that however you want.
Beautiful.
My compote, which right now, I said I'm not a sweets guy, but man,
if you guys could smell how good this is, it's just so tasty. And you saw the ingredients were like 4 ingredients.
Easy.
So this is, I'm gonna let this cook a little longer because it's still a little too watery. So I messed up. I probably added a little too much water.
Easy fix.
But
Just
that's
boil
okay.
it off.
I'm gonna let it cook out, and my cauliflower salad's right there. So I'm still available for more questions. But I wanted to make sure I gave you guys a recap.
We got another question. Well, I don't know if it was you or me that brought up the mushrooms, but there's no mushrooms in these dishes, but they're getting some attention, right? So is there a nutritional difference between regular mushrooms and more exotic, such as cremini? Yes, there is, actually. I talked about this recently. The conventional mushrooms you buy at the store are grown in the dark.
Sorry, I was just talking.
Conventional ones are grown in the dark, and the ones that are grown in the light have more vitamin D in them. So you might hear that you can get some vitamin D from mushrooms. The kind you want are the kind that are grown in light, and that will get you more nutrition, not the ones grown in a dark, sticky place. So yeah, the exotic ones definitely are a lot more nutritious. They're also more expensive too, but if you love mushrooms and maybe you want to try to forage or something for mushrooms, then yeah, those are definitely more nutritious.
I love mushrooms. I would go for the expensive ones if I can here and there because they're so good. They're so good.
We should do something on mushrooms.
Yeah, we eat a lot of mushrooms, and there's so many different kinds, and you can get dried mushrooms and rehydrate them. Obviously fresh. You can get the ones that you're
grilled portobello mushrooms.
That's my
favorite.
Burgers. Portobello burgers is one of my wife's favorites, so we could maybe do a portobello burger one day. So yeah,
that'll be part of our summer.
Yeah, we should do that. Definitely.
So the question was about the frittata. Is that something that should usually be served by itself, or would you suggest that it be served with some other companion dish?
I'd eat it by itself.
By itself. I mean, if you're doing it for breakfast, you can eat it like you would like a scramble or an omelet.
And that one's loaded.
Yeah, it's loaded. Eat it with some bread or some potatoes. If you're doing it for lunch, you can eat it as like with a salad on the side if you want kind of like a light lunch. You can eat it for dinner. You can, like I said, you can cut it into smaller pieces and wrap it into a tortilla or make it into a burrito. I mean, whatever you want. This is once it's cooked and ready, it's so flexible and so good. And you can cut it however you want. You can slice it up into wedges
and throw it into a corn tortilla for a frittata taco.
There you go, frittata taco. Let your imaginations go wild, guys. Remember, it's
there's no rules here.
This is really fun, and a frittata is just a fun, easy thing. You saw how easy it was to make that. So, yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of suggestions. One, someone took the bait on it and says, yes, all about mushrooms would be a great class.
Okay.
I cannot imagine.
I'd be down for that.
Oh my goodness. And then another person said, I would love it if you did a show on making your own plant-based burgers, also mushrooms.
Okay.
So I think, maybe these guys are on to something for summertime coming up.
Let's do some kind of.
Oh, no, sorry. One quick question or counter question is for the person who said about the mushroom burgers. I have made a lot of different kinds of plant-based burgers with like beans or grains or lentils or whatever. There's lots of good ones. I'd love to do an episode session like that. In terms of mushrooms, I've done portobello burgers on their own. I'm not a huge fan of like crushing up mushrooms into a burger. So just for clarification for the person who asked that, I'm not sure what you meant, but if you're okay with like just portobello burgers, we can totally do that. Or we can do like other plant-based burgers.
I just take the cap and just throw it on the grill with a little bit of olive oil and just a little bit of salt and pepper. And I just grill that puppy like that and throw it on a whole grain bun with a ton of lettuce and tomato and onion. And I'm happy.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say
easy.
Do a full session on that. It would be kind of boring because with a portobello burger, yeah, you just put it on the grill, or if you're cooking inside, you just throw it into a pan and or you can bake it, roast it in your oven, whatever you want. But yeah, I love that idea.
Another idea is that more good sauces. So that's another one.
Good sauces?
being
Is
such
this
a.
in reference to some of the past sauces I've made, maybe?
I don't know.
Well,
What-
they don't have to
yeah,
answer, but yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm assuming. Yeah, that's totally fine. There's tons of different ones, and again, if we're staying with the seasons, now we're coming into summer,
Yay!
and
Tomato
which
season.
means tomatoes. We can do salsas. We can do roasted tomato sauces. We can.
I've got
do
a killer
peppers.
tomato marinade recipe that's been passed down for like 100 years in my family. I'd like to share that too.
There you go. So yeah, let's stick with that. Keep that in mind, guys. Eat with the seasons. Go to the market. See what's out there. Get interested. Get curious. If you haven't cooked with something before, try it out. You know, there's no harm in it, and you'll surprise yourself at how much fun you might have trying something.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to the really fun part of the year in terms of summer with the vegetables and fruit. I'm like Shelley. I love peaches and nectarines. I love tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, all that stuff. But I also love everything all year round. As you can tell, I kind of have fun with everything. So
Hey, one more thing though, real quick. I want to tell
Please.
everyone, go to the farmer's market at the very end when they're about to close, because I swear they will start throwing their produce at you. They don't want to
They're
take
really
it with
cheap.
them. On a Sunday especially. Honestly, I've gotten stuff for free at the end of the farmer's market. So
Actually, we have a question about that because someone raised the idea or the question of if the farmers markets tend to be more expensive than the regular markets. What's your sense of that, Arash and Shelley?
So here's the thing. It depends on the market. I've gone to some farmers markets that are very pricey. The Ferry Building in San Francisco, certain ones that are a little more like trendy, can be a little more pricey. These days, honestly, the price point between farmers market and grocery store, it's gotten a lot closer. Some things are honestly the same price or even less from a farmer's market. And remember, it's not just the price. If it's the same price, or if it's even like 10 or 20 cents more at the market, you're getting something like, exactly like Shelley said, it's local. You're supporting your local businesses. You're getting something that's much more nutrient dense than like blueberries that were flown to you from Chile, or lettuce that was grown in southern Mexico that was picked 2 weeks ago. That is unfortunately how most of our food system operates. You're eating things that were picked 3 weeks ago. Bananas that were picked 2 months ago in Ecuador and shipped to you. Bananas are harder to get locally because that's a tropical fruit, but you get my idea. So yeah, guys, try to do it, try it out. And some things are really good deals. And Shelley's point was great about going at the end of the market where they're literally just giving it to you.
They're throwing it at you, especially on a Sunday. They don't want it. They don't want to bring it back with them.
Yep.
So try that.
All right, some other random comments. I like your dressing tonight. Someone was suggesting vegetarian crock pot meals.
Yep, love that.
And
you guys with us for 8 to 10 hours though? Be a marathon.
Yeah, we'd have to maybe commission things that people want, and I could like make them ahead of time and then maybe show you some prep stuff later and then show you the end product. But yeah.
Very good.
I've done a couple things on the crock pot. If you've joined us for all the sessions, I've used the crock pot a couple times in the past. So.
Excellent. Well, those are all the questions and comments that came through. I've been sort of feeding them through Shelley, so that's why we don't really necessarily need to have a Q&A session at this point, because the questions have been coming all throughout your presentation. So thank you again, Arash and Shelley. This was a lot of fun and just goes to show how practical and sort of productive you can be with just going to your local farmers market, pick up some of the fresh stuff, and put together some amazingly nutritious and delicious meals. So thank you for doing that again, for welcoming us to your kitchen. And I want you to thank your videographer. She's doing an amazing job.
She's attending the 3-month-old who started crying. So.
Great, just in nick of time. All right, everyone, as I mentioned, the recording of tonight's session will be in your email first thing tomorrow morning. So thanks, Arash and Shelley. And I think we're doing one more next month, a joint presentation. Yeah. So we'll need to figure out what we're going to talk about. But I'm sure you guys are going to hit it out of the park just like tonight. So thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you, Franklin. Thank you, Shelley.
Bye, Arash. Thank you. Bye, Franklin.
Bye-bye, everyone.